Hi, everybody, it's Lace. And I had a great conversation with one of our brand new tenants who happened to watch a previous video where I was saying free room rentals for folks that own no land. You know, there were certain limits on the deco imposed because of the limits that are imposed on me for the lot. But in that conversation, met a really great fellow, and I'm going to give him credit for what's going to be starting this series. And instead of, I used to just put tips and they're all mixed in on my videos and nowhere to find tips and tricks. Well, you just have to watch every single one. Yeah, and while I did list them on the forums, what the topics were, and you could search the forums and word text search it, um, maybe that's not the best way to present some material. And he said, hey, maybe the top 10 scams that you've identified in the game and stuff. And that led me in other paths, which is, and he said, or top tricks or something, or top new player help. And rather than trying to do a top 10 or something, I think as new things come to me or other players mention them, thank you. God, I'll quiet all day. As soon as I turn on the headset, there she's going. She's got to waller and roll around. Thank you, ruffian. Everybody loves to hear your barking. Not. Anyway, that led me down the other path of, tips. So maybe I'll try to do some series of here's some new player tips, and I won't repeat them, and we'll just call them new player tips. Same thing with the scams. Top scams to avoid. And then that way, if you're only looking to see those couple things when you do your searching and stuff, for my videos, those will be very apparent. You go, oh, I already saw the one in July. I can look at the one in August or whatever. 10's an awful lot to cover in one thing, so I'll probably try to limit it to 3 to 5. And as I discover them or uncover them, I will report them to you guys. So I'm showing off the miner helmet that I have on now. For me, this is kind of a throwback to, I don't know, I guess it's probably the Houston Oilers perhaps that started this in American football, where people would be in the stands and they'd have a miner helmet on with their team logo. And now that's actually an industry and a business, and people sell helmets with team logos on it. I don't know if it's caught on in, let's say, European soccer / football, but it is something that makes me kind of grin. Because not only is it useful for us as miners, and let's say you were a late comer to the game and you didn't have a cloak, or you don't like the cloak that has the light spell on it, this was a new way to get light. These helmets were available from, I believe it was the telethon, not this last one, mini one, but the one before that. What was that, end of May, I think, and they just came into the game, and you're probably going to see me marching around in it a lot because I just really like it. I'm not sure if I'm an oil rigger or a miner, but I just really like the texture of the metal of the hat, and of course the light is great because if I didn't like my cloak, I can wear, like this cloak has no light on it. Some of the earlier backer cloaks had the light spell on it, which is great because you didn't constantly have to cast light and stuff. And then they've kind of changed the light spell. There's been a lot of stuff going on with lighting, because lighting is one of the most expensive resources for your game system and for the game itself. So they have to that's kind of where they're doing the tweaking and trying to get it down to where light isn't so expensive. But this light right here is great. The only complaint that I've seen on this is that people are like, oh my god, it's like an interrogation unit. You're blinding me if you're standing there talking to somebody. So maybe as a courtesy, remove your helmet before talking to a friend so you're not blinding them. For me, I just think it's great. I love the helmet. So that's why I'm in it. Now, let's get back to the point of this. This is going to be a few tips and tricks for new players. I've covered this one a bit before in another video, but like I said again, I'm trying to consolidate tips and tricks. So the big thing is being able to talk in zone. Right now, there's no looking for group, but also besides looking for group, you want to communicate to people. So on your keyboard, typically to the right hand side of it, you have a num lock key, and it's called num lock. And if you hit that key and turn it on, a lot of keyboards today now have a visual indicator with a light that shows that it's on. So ensure that your num lock key is on, and then hit the 0 key, which is usually a far oversized key than the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do that and hit 0 with your num lock turned on, remember the light indicator on or something, and hit 0, and it shows you any players in the zone you're currently in. Now, if you're in a PvP zone, I believe I believe it will just show a question mark for the name, so you can't like hunt kill people in PvP and stuff like that. You can't go, oh, so and so's here, I'm gonna go find them and kill them because I know they're an easy kill. No, it'll just show a question mark. But in non-PvP zones, let's say a hunting scene, or even like let's say Owl's Head or Doris or an NPC town, or your player-owned town like I'm in now, I can see who all's here. I use this for my events, especially like my crafting events or even events that I'm hosting, to see new players log in. I can then do /Z to the zone and talk to them. Now right now, you can see some of the chat that I was talking to the zone, and I can just say here right now, hi there, just using zone talk as a demo in a video. And Steel Course here is one of my guild members, and that's why his name's in blue. If somebody's not in your guild and you hit the O, again with the num lock on, you will see their name and it'll just be in white. If they're in your group, it's a different color. I think it's like a different blue. It's like a little darker blue. This is kind of like a cyan or aqua blue. If they're in your group, they're going to be a darker blue if I remember correctly. But again, hitting the 0 key with the num lock on is going to show you anybody in the zone. So let's say right now there's no looking for group tool in the game. I do believe it's planned. I'm pretty sure I definitely read that as one of the systems that hasn't been brought in yet. But for now, you can go into a zone, and if you're in multiplayer and you hit the the 0 key with num lock on, I can see all the players in the zone. I can say, hey, so and so, do you want a group? I'd know who to ask. I don't have to just randomly shout to zone. I could literally see them, and I can right click their name and I can send them a message and stuff. Additionally, zone chat works in the overland map, and I'm going to go show you this again. Like I said, I've covered it before, but these are one of the things that new players, it's just not really exactly covered in the new player handbook and stuff. And it's just one of those little tricks that you can use to either see who's there, and you can talk to them, /Z, because /L is local chat, and that's only in a certain area of effect. But /Z goes for the entire scene, so you can talk to everybody. And if you want to know who to talk to, that's what I'm showing you, is hitting the num lock and the 0 key. Somebody just came in here and I did not wave, so now I can say to this person that I just saw that I missed them running by, didn't see their name, and then you see Steelcore going, I guess I have to react to this to show how it works. But he obviously saw my message in zone. And then the person that I talked to went back. So while some people make the complaint that the world seems empty or whatever, well, you just have to know exactly how it is to communicate with folks. And I'm trying to show you this as one new player tip. I'm going to go out to Novia, and I'll pick back up after I zone in, and we'll talk about the uses of zone chat there. So right now, as of R44 and even a few releases back, one of the things that I see when I'm running around the overland map on multiplayer mode, maybe not so much here right around this Elysium area because it is a secluded island area, but on the main overland Novia map is I will see groups of 2 and 3 people running around. And sometimes I'll talk to them, or sometimes they'll shout out and see me and stuff. And typically what I find their reply is, I'm like, hey, what are you up to? And they're asking me, what am I up to? And typically their reply is they're hunting sieges. Sieges, and we've covered this before too in other videos, but again, we're consolidating. Depending on the devotional in a POT town, an NPC town, and I believe possibly even a PRT town, they have certain devotionals. And based on how the alignments of the stars, the planets, and things happen, certain Kabbalists come and will invade that area, and it becomes under siege. And the only way to enter that POT or NPC's town is stuff is to, you can run into the siege, and there are ways as lower level characters to move around it and not directly interact with the siege, or you can engage all the folks that are trying to attack the town. You'll usually end up having to take out some miners, and I don't mean miners as in pickaxe, but minor, you know, NPC or minor NPC mobs or stuff, and then you'll have siege engineers, which tend to drop some wood, which is nice, and then you'll have the cobblists, which may drop some other loots between, you know, artifacts or robes or their gear and things like that. So lately I'm finding a lot of folks that are running around hitting sieges. So one way, if you're again in multiplayer, now if you're in your party just running around solo together, you can't talk to other people, you know, doing sieges. But if you're in multiplayer, again, I can hit \Z and say hello zone instead of hello world. That's a kind of a joke for you programmers out there. Hello zone. And you know, maybe somebody's going to answer me back. Now it's pretty early on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning from the US. It'd be the afternoon in Europe and stuff. And let's see, somebody replied back. This is what happens. And stuff. And so I'm just trying to show you one way to, a different way to communicate with the world. Like Seamus just waved at me. He came out of somewhere and stuff, and he, you know, waved. And people are pretty friendly if you say hello and stuff. And I can say, how you doing? And stuff. So this is another way to find groups, and this is a way to find siege groups. Because really, unless you're super uber, you're not going to solo a siege. So finding a group to hook up with, you're not going to get every drop and stuff, and every group's rules on loot drops and stuff, depending on what guild or how they're doing it or how long they've been doing it, you know, that's going to be up to them. So you'll have to discuss this with them. But using Zone as a chat is a good way to find groups. Not only in single, you know, not only in just, you know, little hunting scenes, but also on the overland map and stuff. Oof. So here's, she's telling me she's naked heading to a PvP zone for a quest. If they kill me, they get Jack. There's a tip. Look at that. We just found another tip for you guys. Some of the quest lines do make you go into a PvP zone, and Katrina has told you she's butt naked. I had to do a reshoot because, I don't know, my mic went all freaky. But after Katrina was saying, you know, something about heading naked into it, this was something that, you know, I knew about, but that, again, my new friend, Brulin Johns, who, you know, led me to doing these videos as a segmented way of new tips or new scams and stuff. He said his guild leader, and I believe he was in a guild called Kindred, and so I didn't get the guild leader's name, and that was my bad to not ask, but he said that he'll go out into a PvP zone loaded up with lettuce in single units. I've seen this in many games where, like, let's say if they had different monetary things, people load up on a bunch of copper, so if anybody pickpocketed, their odds were to get copper coins rather than gold coins. I've seen other people do the inventory shuffle and stuff. It's pretty painful in this game to sit there and split a stack. Yeah, oh goodness gracious, come on guys, really? Be quiet, for goodness sakes. Stop, give mommy a break. Thank you. Yeah, good tail wags. Alright, maybe they understood that. But anyway, it's pretty difficult and stuff to do that. It's painstaking to split the stacks out. And to split a stack, let's say if I have inventory, so let's just show this as a tip. I don't know what I have that I can split. Let's see if I got anything good to show here. Damn it. What do we got? I got so much crap on me. I got nothing. Well, I guess gold coin of the obsidians. So I'd have to hit the shift key. And I'm doing a left mouse click, and I can say 1, and I can split it off, and now I got that one separated. I can do, again, shift key, left mouse click, drag to the right, I get the quantity, and I can do 1, but I could also do shift, left mouse click, 20, and hit OK, and now I split off 20, and so that's how you separate your lettuce. For me, I'm going to use a banana, And I had this discussion this morning because a banana is self-contained. If I drop it on the ground, it's okay. I can pick it up and open it up and my food's still pristine and not dirty. Same thing with an orange or a tangerine. Just saying. It was one of those random thoughts that when I had this discussion with this new person that I met, I was like, tangerine would work. Yeah, wouldn't get dirty if it fell on the ground. I don't know, 3-second rule. It's probably from, I was at Comic-Con in Tampa, Florida, not the big one in San Diego, and my friend had just spent $10 on 2 sliders, which are basically like Crystal or Castle burgers, the little teeny tiny burgers. She spent $10 for 2 little burgers from a food truck. And she dropped one on the ground and went, oh my God, that was $5. And she goes, 3-second rule. And she snagged it off the ground and ate it. I was like, damn, you go, girl. So that's probably where I'm getting all that information from. Anyway, thanks for letting me put that in there. So anyway, that kind of covers the Z, or the \Z. Again, num lock. Make sure that little light's lit up on your thing, or that you've got it, toggle it on and off, whatever. And you hit the 0 key, and that's going to give you nearby players. See, I can do this in zone, just like I did it in a POT. I just hit the 0 key, and it tells me, so I can see there's one PvP player somewhere on the map, and the people that are not PvP, I can see, and I can say, oh, hey, and I do know him. Honestly, I'm not going to really send him a message, but I can say, hey, what are you up to? Where are you going? What you doing? And as people come in and out. Now, keep in mind that the overland map, just like scenes or even POTs, there are different instances. So you can't see everybody in the world. You can just see everybody in the world that's in this instance of the overland map. And you can see how they're logging in, logging out, and stuff like that. So pretty cool, right? These are ways to find groups, until the looking for group thing is, implemented. Or if you're just trying to find your buddy who also started the game, and you're not quite sure how to talk to him or something. So that kind of covers the Z key. Wow, I'm just hitting escape. Wow, you can just see people going in and out, in and out. So for folks that say, oh my goodness, the world's so empty, blah, blah, blah. These are just the people in multiplayer. There's tons of people that go in single player because they're hunting and they want to hunt alone. So, yeah, that's absolutely not true. And the game's not launched. Told you I knew him. Anyway, so that's the Z thing. Let me segue into the next one and prep my speech for it. So this next tip that we're going to cover, again, I've showed it, and what happens is people will say, can you make me custom armor, and I'm a caster, or I'm an archer, or I want to be a tank. Well, the thing is, with custom gear, first of all, many people will say, oh sure, I can do that, and they're going to charge you 50,000 gold per piece. The reason they're going to charge you that is because the way stats come into gear from crafting is absolutely random. So to get exactly what you want, they probably had to make 20 pieces of that one particular item slot, whether it be a chest or pants or gloves or boots, and they may have blown them up in the enchanting process, they may have blown them up in the masterworking process, or it didn't come out exceptional. So there's all these factors going in. So they're going to compute that into their cost, and they're going to pass it on to the buyer. It's really not a good idea to ask for a custom set unless you're super rich and you really want them to do it. Because really what the crafter is going to do is they're going to sit there and they're going to make 20 chest pieces or 20 arm pieces, and they're going to wait till they come out exceptional, which right now it's about a 30% chance to make one exceptional. But then now they've got to play the random number generator again and see if it's going to enchant, and then they've got to see if it's going to enchant with the stats you want, and that's the first enchant. Then they get to do it for the second time and see if it's going to blow up. Also, the first time it could have blown up too. Then they've got to see if it's going to get the stats you want on the second roll, and then they're going to go over and masterwork it, and they're going to see if it's going to get the stats you want on the first roll or blow up. And then they've got to see if it's going to get the stats you want on the second roll. So the odds of all these things just happening to magically, randomly come together for a custom piece of armor are about 1 in, I don't know, I never really did the math on it, but it's probably about 1 in 1 million. Because it's just, we have no control over the stats. Probably not 1 in 1 million, but probably 1 in 1,000 or so. I don't know. But in the meantime, what's going on with the crafter, and this is probably a scam thing that I should put it in, but it's also a new player tip. It's kind of both. And I don't mean to say crafters are scamming you, but they're trying to sell it for what it costs them to make. And for a custom piece of armor, the cost is so super high, I won't even make custom armor. It's not worth it. It's not worth my frustration, and it's not worth your dollars. What I suggest to you folks in general is don't try to be so specific, because crafters cannot be specific in what they craft. If you're looking for something with decks and you say, hey, can you try to maybe make me a pair of pants that are just focused on decks? Crafters can try to do that, but again, pardon me, froggy, they can't control that a dex roll comes up on enchanting. And enchanting is mostly where you get your base stats like dex, strength, and int. You can also, sometimes they will come up on the masterworking, depending on the item slot, depending on, you know, the type of gear, whether it be leather, cloth, and chain, or plate, and stuff. But we really have no control over it. The best thing, and this is how I do my sales, I pretty much do 1K per enchant, and here's how it came out. If you think it's useful, great. Buy my gear. If you don't think it's useful, sure, go pay 5 times the amount for somebody that happened to get this certain role that you want. But I want it to be not only a new player tip, but it's also a scam tip. Somebody showed me a +11 bow that they paid 57K for. I would have sold that same bow for 15K. Just saying. The stats weren't that great. The construction, the materials used in the construction, not that great. The stat rolls, really basically on a bow or a chest or legs, you can do a -20 durability, which means it's a good stat. It's a major enhancement or major masterwork. Or, well, masterwork's a little different, sorry. Let's just talk about enchantments. It's a -20 durability on a major enchant, -10 durability on a minor enchant, and that's either going to be +6 something, depending on their skill, or +3 if it's a minor. So when I see somebody selling a +11 bow for 57K, I just want to smack them in the head, because they basically just ripped off this new player. So this is why we do new player tips. A +11 bow, in my personal opinion, if the crafter is not ripping you off, should cost no more than 15K. And some crafters are going to hate me for saying that, but I'm sorry. Even if you didn't farm 1 ounce of anything and you made it, you're still making a profit at 15K. Now, if you're trying to rip people off, which they are, and trying to use the funds from the 57K to buy you more gold, more silver, so you can up your masterwork or up your enchanting skills, that's what I'm seeing happening. And as new players come into the game, new players are going to want gold. New players are going to want silver. They're going to want to try to learn to craft. They're going to want to try to enchant and masterwork and do it on their own. And that's what's going to drive inflation prices up, is these people are going to sell things way too much. I'm not going to do that. It took me a year to get my skills up, and I mostly mined all of it. And near the end, I started getting a little lazy, going, oh my god, I'm just going to buy some because I'm just over it. But I was selling my gear to fund that. It's pretty complex to try to explain it all. But some of the gear that I see for sale in places, and it's not in any one particular town, it's not any one particular vendor. Hell, I see people buy my stuff and then resell it for 3 times the amount that I charge. So make sure you check that. Check the maker's mark. If it says Lace Delamorte, and it's at 40,000, you can bet your ass somebody's trying to sell my shit and rip you guys off. That's for sure. And I'm sure it's going on in other places too, so that's part of the scam thing. Again, this was supposed to be tips, but this is kind of, buyer beware. Yeah, it takes a huge amount of materials to make things. It takes a huge amount of fuel to make things. It takes a very long time to get your skills up and make things. But I think people are super overpriced. That's my personal opinion. And again, I may make some enemies from it, but this also is a new player tip. So a new day is dawning, and I should adjust my attitude accordingly. One of the other things that, from my discussion with not such a new player, he's been around for a few months, but he was asking me about custom armor, and I was like, do you want strength, dex, and he's like, well, I'm kind of doing this, I'm kind of doing that, and so what I'm finding is players will tell me what their play style is and ask me to craft them armor for it. Again, I don't do custom armor. I make the armor that comes out, and if it's good enough, I will put it up for sale. If it's crap, I will scrap it. But when somebody new comes to me and says, I think, this is kind of how I'm playing, and I kind of want that, I want to be able to try to guide them to some skills that will help them. And so the biggest player tip that I can say is hit C for character. And again, we've covered this, but this is new player tips, a new round, a consolidation. So I'm going to hit C for character. And I don't even have good armor on, so my stats are going to look like crap, so don't judge. But the basic thing is to look at these three main things: strength, dex, and int. And when I mouse over strength, I get a tooltip. And it says it determines my health, my carry capacity, my physical damage, that's going to be important to melee players, resistance to immobilization effects, and chance to parry or block on attack. When I look at dex, so to me this seems very tank-like, but also we all need strength just to be able to loot stuff and not have to every 20 minutes run home and dump our items that that we've collected. So that's just another thing about strength. When we look at dex, it's going to be my chance to dodge, very important again for melee. Chance to hit, and again, people that are melee and stuff, and chance to land a critical hit with a physical attack. Now, one of the other things that comes into a physical attack is also called a bow. So, if you're at range and they're at range and stuff, so that's where dex is going to play into that. And there's some mixing and matching going on between strength and dex depending on the type of mob you're fighting. But again, this should give you, depending on what you're wanting to do, some intelligence on what you're looking for. As you can see, my strength's pretty high. Well, that's mostly because I'm a hoarder and a crafter, and why I've built that up. And I've built that up in a couple different ways, because I have all crap gear with no stats on right now. That's just stuff I've done in my tree skill. And if I hit K, I can see my skills. And I've talked about this again in other videos. If I go into, I believe it's tactics, there's a skill called train strength. Your first one is obviously healthy, which is your hit points. Then you got train strength, which is part of how I've gotten that up. And then there's heavy lifter. It doesn't add to my strength, but it allows me to carry more. And you can see I've GM'd that bad boy, because again, I'm a hoarder and a crafter. That's just another little tip that wasn't exactly part of this video, but it's a tip. This is how I allow myself to stay out hunting longer when I want to hunt. Now, let's go into int. This is probably my weakest area, and I can't speak to the most because I'm not a heavy magic user. I do a little healing, and I'm kind of actually working on this character to become more of a party healer and just off damage type of person. So I'm going to need to bump this up to help my healing. But anyway, it determines a character's maximum focus, which is going to be important to me as a healer. Magic damage, if you're a magic user, obviously important. And chance to land a critical hit with a magical attack. But that's also a magical attack. You can think of healing as a magical attack. It's magic. So obviously, even though I want to be a better healer and do some group healing and be a group healer, yeah, need to bump that up either with gear that has more int on it. Or if I hit K for skills and I go into the focus tree down here, I need to just do a little more time in there and bump that up. There's also some individual skills. If I hit K for skills again, it's not only here, there's some other ones that, boost int. There's some skills in here that boost dex. There's some that boost strength. All these things. So there's many ways to boost these. But again, when you're asking for something to be crafted a certain way, understand what it is you want to be, what stats you think are your primary focus, so that the crafter can kind of do that. Again, I won't do custom stuff, but there's tons of people that will. Just don't get ripped off. Be cool with what you're asking for and stuff like that. Also, there's a lot of people that will go, hey, I've got 1,000 animal hides, I've got this and this and this, and they hand them to the crafter. Well, now guess what? The crafter now has to spend 3 hours refining your crap to try to get an exceptional, then to try to do the enchantments, and then to try to do the masterworks and stuff. Yeah, you're really basically costing them more time than you're paying them by providing the own mats. I'm sure there's some as new players, new player crafters that will do that, but your older, more experienced crafters are going to be like, I ain't refining all that crap for you. That's 20 hours of refining, and then I might not even make the gear that you want. And then you're gonna, and I learned this lesson the hard way. Somebody gave me all this stuff. I sat there and refined it all. I spent 3 hours doing it, and he gave me 1,000 gold. I'm like, yeah, 1,000 gold for not only 3 hours of my time, but also the time that it took me to advance my skills to the ability to be able to attempt your stuff. Really? Yeah. So, again, tips for new players, but also kind of a scam thing. Yeah, not gonna do it. Don't be scammed by players going, I'll give you all the mats, you make me my armor. Seems helpful, but it's not really, because you've got to buy all the fuel, you got to make sure they understand that and the cost, and then you've got to sit there and spend hours refining it. The last tip we're going to cover for this series is something that I guess we've all known kind of, sort of, but not every new player has. Let's say you start the game and you make a character named Jon Snow. You say, I want to be a tank. And you start playing for a week or so and you're like, man, I don't think I want to be a tank, but I just spent a week doing it. I built all this experience. I got this to, level 40 and this to 60 and this to 40 and 60. Man, I spent all this experience. I've got all this gold. I've sold all my hides. I've sold everything I've found in the world. I've made all this gold from the drops. I've done all this stuff. Man, I want to start over again. Hey, it's okay, because you can take everything that you've gotten from quote-unquote Jon Snow A, your first iteration, and if you put it in the character bank, in your bank, and I know some of you may only have a few slots, can't do this with chests, you got to get all your stuff out of your chest, because once you delete your character, if you had tenancy and you were renting a spot from here or there, or had stuff, stashed in places and all over the world, that stuff's going to be gone. But if you take it and you put it all back in the bank, which is basically your quote-unquote account bank, and you delete him, you should be able to get that stuff back. Now, I've not personally made a character and deleted it and redone it, but this, again, was a tip from one of the guys I knew who had a character for a week and re-rolled it and stuff. Obviously, with our wipes and stuff, it was one thing. The second way to do that, to ensure it, is to make a friend. And say, hey, I've got all this stuff. Can you put it in a trunk for me? And they'll hold it for you in a trunk. And now with the new tenancy, it makes it very easy. We can just throw all your crap in a trunk, 300 items per trunk, and then you re-roll your character and come back. And this is gold too. You're going to need to transfer your gold to someone. Delete your character, remake your character, and we can give you all of the gold that you earned on the first one, all the stuff you earned on your first one, and you're ready to go on the second one. Even armor, weapons, whatever. Things are not attuned in this game like in other games that we've seen, in the past. Remember, as soon as you equipped an item and became attuned, you could never give it to somebody else and stuff like that. That doesn't exist. So, while they say, I know certainly rewards from accounts from the bank will transfer from character to character, but you got to remember you have separate accounts from character to character. But if you delete a character, you should still have access to that same bank because the bank is for the account, not the character. Now, eventually later we are supposed to have multiple characters per account, and that may change things, but as it stands now, it's your account bank, not the character's bank. So if your character's name Jon Snow today, and tomorrow you name them, Cersei, well, Cersei should be able to get Jon Snow's stuff from the bank because it's your account bank. But if you're, worried about that, again, the second method is hand your gold off, and you can't put gold in the bank, so you are going to have to transfer your gold to a friend. You can hand your gold, you can hand your items to somebody who holds it for you, and puts it in a chest and waits for you to come back under your new skin and hands it to you. So these are just things to think about. If you have the character and you delete the character, everything that was on that character, quote unquote, in his inventory / bags is gone. So if you spend all that time making the money or getting the resources, man, make sure to protect yourself before you delete that character. That's the last tip I think we're going to cover for this video. We'll be doing some more. I've got already more written down, but I don't want to get too wordy like I tend to do. So I'm going to call that a wrap. Take care, everybody. Happy hunting and be safe.